Greta Thunberg, the poster child for the trope that children should be seen and not heard. I'm Danielle Metz.
I'm Robert Vaughn.
And this is the Danielle Metz Show. How dare you! Shouted Greta at the recent climate summit at the UN.
Clutching her
She's
pearls?
been making the clutching her pearls. She's been making the rounds with her woke scold, her face pinched in a perpetual scowl of judgment. I could bring up all of the issues that the other pundits and commentators have already done so regarding her age and mental disorders, which she herself exploits. The fact that she admits that she doesn't know the science behind the subject she's scolding us over, and that her handlers, including her parents, seem to have a self-serving ulterior motive of seeking fame, influence, and political power. I could do that, and well, let's be fair, I just did, but I want to focus on a different aspect of this manufactured issue. All she has is my pity, because that's all she deserves. What she spouts is pure communistic propaganda and what she passionately believes, but she knows absolutely nothing about. That's why the left uses children to hide behind. They're innocent and ignorant. They're the useful idiots with bright and righteous faces and easily panicked. My 6-year-old son is terrified by thunderstorms, as was his brother before him, and it wouldn't take much to push him to convince him that the world is coming to an end every time the lightning flashed. But what I really want to focus on is the phrase, "How dare you?" It's not a question, but an insult and a call to guilt. Who are you to question me? Who are you to challenge what I am telling you? I am your moral superior. How dare you? How dare you? So, Robert, given the backlash to this blatant child abuse and the rise of the sensible approach to climate change, do you think the pendulum has finally swinging back away from the hysterical doom and culture? Or is it just inevitable that we live in a pearl-clutching world of panic and guilt?
No, the pendulum. This whole Greta Thunberg thing is very interesting in that it's been done before, of course, with David Suzuki's daughter.
Yeah, David Suzuki's daughter, yep.
Yeah. And so it's, like I say, it's been done before to great effect. To great effect. I mean, people listen to kids when they're panicking and all of that, and they know that. The left knows it. And they're cute, so you got to listen to them, and you can't attack them because, well, they're kids and they're cute, and so you can't attack them, and especially this one who's autistic, even though she's using that to her favor too, and her parents are definitely taking advantage of her Asperger's syndrome, as mild as that may be, because I do know a little bit about it. And so I love the whole idea. This is a great tactic of the left, right out of Saul Alinsky. I don't even think Saul Alinsky thought about this one, using kids in this way, the way, propaganda way that you see from the old World War II propaganda films and posters from Nazi Germany and the like of the Hitler.
So you're not allowed to call her a Nazi. That's verboten.
But your father did a show, a Just Right episode last Thursday, where he basically quite rightly identified the ideology that Greta Thunberg is spouting as evil, pure, unadulterated evil, and it is. Does that make her evil? She's a 16-year-old autistic kid. I'm not passing any judgment on her, but her ideology, that of her parents, the Social Democrats, because apparently there's quite a history of her parents and people who have pushed Greta into the limelight of basically preaching communism, social democrats in Europe, and fascism. They're almost all interchangeable. Fascism, of course, being that political doctrine of private ownership, public control, much as much of Europe. So their ideology is absolute, pure, unadulterated evil. They want to destroy the world. Again, it's a death cult. But she doesn't want, she says the fossil fuels belong in the ground. No. They belong to man to further his survivability and his pleasure and his comfort. I can't imagine a world without fossil fuels. I guess we can imagine it, can we? You just go back to pre-1850. and there's your world, Greta. People dying. Yep. It's fossil fuels that allows me to have traveled the world at a moment's notice. I could hop on a plane and be in Australia next day type of thing, thanks to fossil fuels. Can't get that with solar power. It's fossil fuels that make it possible for a person to have a banana in December, in Canada. It's just, silly things like that we just take for granted because fossil fuels are the lifeblood of modern civilization. And she wants to stop that. She's calling for people to die, basically.
Yeah, that's the thing. She wants people who do not have the availability of the prosperity that we enjoy at this moment, like in developing nations. She just wants them, if they have to give up their fossil fuels, and like the dirtier ones, like coal and stuff like that, they would die. There'd be no prosperity there. There'd be no, they wouldn't be able to achieve or come up to the level that we are in the Western world. And she's appealing to the guilt that can only be appealed to those of us in the Western world, is that we are so prosperous, therefore we must feel guilty and therefore must be punished. Our prosperity is our sin at the core, and therefore we must repent and give up our bad behavior, which is using fossil fuels. And if I understand correctly, fossil fuels produce this thing called carbon dioxide. Do I have that right? And I believe that feeds plants. And I believe that plantation and vegetation is actually good for both the environment and other animals other than humans, because we are sinful. I get that. We're sinful at the core. Okay, I will put that aside. But I believe that maybe we should be looking at it from more the perspective of maybe we should be encouraging the use of fossil fuels in order to support the rest of the environment and make the planet greener and give the animals that eat vegetables and vegetation more vegetation to do so. Would that not be better? I thought that was a good thing. Greenhouse gases. I thought greenhouses were good things. The inversion of carbon dioxide as being a poison as opposed to a beneficial gas in a microscopic portion of the atmosphere, as we've talked about before, but it bears repetition because apparently no one seems to take this as a fact. They think it's a conspiracy theory that this is true. So I don't know what she's trying to make us feel guilty for, other than the fact that we're prosperous, that we live in a capitalist society, and we're not on the lower level of everybody else in the world, the third world countries, which aren't even third world really anymore, because they've gotten such levels of prosperity through capitalism and the use of fossil fuels. And I think that's what her problem is.
Ayn Rand properly identified it when she called it hatred of the good for being good. There are some people out there who just hate prosperity, freedom, capitalism, wealth, comfort, industry, and they simply hate it. They see a smokestack and all they can think about is, oh, it's putting black stuff into the sky, when a lot of us would see a smokestack and think, wow, I wonder what they're making for that will benefit me. I wonder if I can afford it. I wonder if it's something good. Is it steel? Great, because that goes into my cars, that goes into planes, that goes into my appliances. Is it energy? That means I can
turn my lights on.
Right. It's there because people want it there. People are paying for that smokestack, for that industry. It's not an imposition. It's like we want goods to make our lives better and more comfortable, or even just to survive. And a person like Greta Thunberg and the people behind her, the evil people behind her, are saying, no, we should have a subsistence life of the nomads in the Serengeti and go back to the way the Han tribe lives in South Africa and go hunt the animals in the forest and then live a productive 30 years and then die of starvation or disease or whatever. That's how they envision mankind, as going back to the day of the caveman. Pure evil.
Well, that is their that is the self-flagellation of the left. Is they believe that for being prosperous we are therefore must be evil, because the only way we could be prosperous is by taking from somebody else, whether it be the environment using fossil fuels, or by taking from the lower working laborer Therefore, the people on the other end of the economic spectrum must have stolen it. They didn't earn it. They stole it. They didn't pay for it. And they don't see the exchange of values. They don't see that if you take fossil fuel from the ground, you're actually doing benefit to the earth. What was it? Alex Epstein, I think, said that you're cleaning up the earth's oil spill by removing fuel from the ground. But they don't see that. All they see is that by using things, you're therefore using people. They see it as a use, not a benefit. And they think that just makes everybody on the receiving end evil. And it's a very, very destructive and self-damning view of life, and a self-hatred and a hatred of others. And not just for the good for being good, I think for the productive for being productive. And they don't like that. They want everybody to be on that subservient or the subsidiary level where we're just surviving. Because therefore we are all equal, and then there's no one better and no one worse. And that's all they're looking for. Except for them. They're okay because they are the ones that are preaching to the rest of us that they will give us the gospel. They will teach us the truth of our own sin, which is the sin of existing. And they can jet around the world. They can do whatever they want. They can burn all the fossil fuels they want, all that stuff, because they're doing their job. That's their job, is to teach the rest of us and make us feel, guilty for what we do. So how dare we?
How dare Greta Thunberg? That's the real question. And I mean that quite sincerely. How dare she? Or her handlers. They are reprehensible in their hubris and their arrogance to suggest that the billions on this planet should cease to exist simply so that they can feed into her anxiety, or lessen her anxiety. And I forget who it was. It may have been Paul Joseph Watson, Matt Christensen, or somebody, other vloggers out there who mentioned that because she has Asperger's, she was shown something in school about climate change and we're all going to die soon because of we all line up at Tim Hortons and don't shut off our engines. And to the rest of the children there, it was, okay, we just had a film about something that's happening that I can't really understand because I'm only a child anyway, and none of this should be even taught in the schools because it's a higher order concept of energy, pollution, environmentalism, ecology, and all this. And that's not something that you teach 15-year-olds necessarily. I mean, a little later on, high school, maybe just keep it to university because it's a specialty. The study of the climate, meteorology, geology. What does she know of the Navier-Stokes equations, To quote Chris Essex, who always asks that of reporters when they want to talk to him about climate change. He, of course, is a climate scientist and applied mathematician. And he says, well, what do you know about the Navier-Stokes equations? And when they go, huh? And he goes, well, why would you want to talk to me about climate change if you don't know about the fundamental equations about fluid dynamics, And so what does Greta Thunberg and her handlers know? Absolutely nothing.
Nope.
She comes out of that classroom, all the kids are just like mesmerized, like, okay, I don't know anything about CO2 or whatever. But Greta Thunberg, because she has Asperger's, fixates on this fear. And it grows and festers inside of her because of her autism. And that's what makes her special, I guess, and singled out from the crowd, is that for her, it quite possibly is a panic, an anxiety-inducing piece of knowledge that she just has to do something about. And all she wanted to do was have a climate strike or whatever, sit down and not do anything, which is great. Yeah, go ahead, fill your boots. But then, of course...
Yeah, but that was used. And when you said that they don't know anything about what they speaking of, no, but they know how to use it. Their parents and the handlers, they know what they're doing. They are inspiring fear and panic in a young child in order to inspire political change and social change in the rest of the world. And that's what they want to do. They know exactly what they're doing. They don't know the science behind climate change because the science behind climate change is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You could say it's going to rain raspberries tomorrow morning, and they'd go, that's fine, but that doesn't change anything that's going to happen because we're all going to die in 5 years or 12 years or 6 months from now. And we should all eat our babies like that one AOC troll showed up and challenged her with. I thought that was brilliant. But yeah, it's the climate change is irrelevant other than as a social means of control. And they know it. Greta Thunberg may not know it, but she is a product of it. And the fact that they're doing this to children is disgusting, but they've been doing it to children always because the children are the ones that are the most easily convinced that that the world is going to end, that there's always the boogeyman around the corner, there's a monster under your bed. That's how they convince them. And that's all it is. It applies to childish fears, and unfortunately, too many adults suffer from the same fears, and that's why we are where we are now. So, I'm going to clutch my pearls some more, and then I'm going to think about it, and then we'll talk again soon next week. Cheers.
If you've enjoyed this presentation, visit justrightmedia.org for more programming that's not right-wing, it's just right.